welcome to Ghostlight Lounge with me, Andrew Bristow. Here I am. Hi, everyone. Today I have a guest, somebody I've worked with before, primarily, actually, only at Disney. Um, I, we worked together for, I want to say, 2 to 3 years. I'm not entirely sure because he moved on to bigger and better things. And yeah, welcome Anthony Miller. Hey man,
Hey
how's it
Andrew,
going?
how's it going?
I'm hanging in there, man. Little background of everything that's going on right now. Me and him, just spent 1 hour, trying to figure out why we're getting audio delay issues because the software I'm using is great but terrible at the same time. But anyways, that aside, how have you been doing? How has this whole pandemic been treating you so far?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been good and bad. Andrew, you kind of mentioned it. I we met each other while I was working at Disney. I moved uh away from Disney. I don't know, to bigger and better things, but definitely to different things. Coming up on 4 years now. It should be 4 years, beginning of June.
Oh,
I
that
started
long?
working for Yeah, that's how long I've been up in Bakersfield. I moved up to Bakersfield, got a job offer from a company called Innovative Concert Lighting, or ICL, which probably I'll refer to it back as, about 4 years ago. And yeah, we are a small to regional lighting company that we do some pretty big stuff. We do quite a bit of corporate events in Vegas and up in the Bay Area. We also do support several tours as well as have contracts with several venues throughout California. So people ask me a lot, what do I do in Bakersfield? The answer is almost nothing. Um, I do a handful of shows in town a year, but the majority of what I do is traveling around to different venues. Um, but it's like I said, getting circling back to the current situation with everything that's going on. Live events are dead right now, which is totally understandable. Um, so basically, as things started ramping up and quarantine started happening and stuff, we started having events drop like crazy. We had a couple of events that were planned that we had on trucks that just outright canceled. And a lot of our stuff that we had planned um, through March, April, May, and we're starting to see stuff in June for sure cancel. And yeah, it's the summer season, the summer touring season is starting to look super doubtful too.
Yeah, that's got to be rough. So, the house that we call them houses, as opposed to like I guess a rental space is another term for it. So the or rental house, I guess you
Yeah,
could say. Yeah,
shop
the shop
rental
you work
house.
out of. They work A list, B list, anybody that just needs lighting packages, or do they deal with sound too?
Um, No, we're just lighting, and it kind of depends. I would say music acts, we do a lot of B lists. We do a lot of house rigs
Hmm.
for a couple of companies, or sorry, couple of venues. Like one of our big contracts is the Ironstone Amphitheater, which is up in Murphy's, California, and they get some pretty big tours that come through. And for the tours that don't carry full production, we provide the house rig. Um, or I've gone up and been the LD for some events up there where they come through without an LD. And that's the majority of our summer. That, and there's a couple other venues that we do that for. And we do support a one large tour essentially a year, which is the Santana tour,
Oh,
which I've
very
had the
cool.
opportunity to program.
Yeah, because I've worked for PRG, and when we were there setting up for our gigs, the warehouse was full of crews just prepping gear for their tours. And one of them was Coachella. This was last year, last April. then one of them was Coachella, one of them was Dirks Bentley, I think, and a bunch of other
Hmm.
bands. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff going on over here. I didn't realize it happened here. And
Yeah, so we do a lot of that. We won't have multiple tours going on at the same time. We'll have one tour going on at a time or one event. Because the way that we operate, we treat even our house rigs and one-off type things very much like touring shows
right,
because we don't travel with a crew. We almost always use local labor. So for me, a lot of times I'm stepping off the truck with a second and I'm using local labor. So I get the feeling of touring all the time um, without the actual bus, which I do kind of miss having. Um,
got it. So that's it's I'm trying to think. Yeah, it. So you don't actually tour with the rigs, and do you, well, actually, that was my question. Do you? So when in fact you do get an opportunity to tour, is it often that it's just rented out, and or do you get the opportunity to tour? And I mean, I know you just said that you don't get to ride the buses and really tour with the band, but it can you expand on what
sure.
other kind of? Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, yes, I have gone on tour with Santana. With just a situation where they needed somebody console savvy to go out with them for a couple of weeks. So I've done that. This last summer when the tour started, I went with them for a couple of days to do their programming because their LD is not the most console savvy person. He's good on a console, but as far as integrating and creating new looks for his show, he's just found it faster to have a knowledgeable person there for him,
Oh,
and
so
he runs
you're
his
more of
show
a
very
console,
manually.
yeah, busking, hardcore busking kind of a thing.
Correct. So he likes to have somebody like myself there um, to help him get his console set up and make sure he can busk with it the way that he wants, because he's essentially building a page per song rather than a cue list show.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So for those of you that don't know, he's talking about when we say busking, um, it's the process, and it's one of the more familiar processes of lighting that I know about because of my background at hotel work. It was you had to do pretty much everything, and it was a lot of splash and trash, or flash and trash. Can't even say it right. It's been
There
that
you go.
long since I've done lighting. Um, you just set up a bunch of lights, you set up some looks, and you hit the button, and those looks will happen. And you keep going, and you push those buttons, and they happen at that moment. Maybe the lights will go down and go up and cross over. I'm putting them in layman's terms because hopefully that's
Yeah,
just
and a lot of it too is, especially the way that I look at it, is I like to build my show file essentially in a way where I combine a lot of things to look. So I'll essentially have one fader that's just positions and the intensity on it. So every time I press the button, the light will go somewhere else.
sure.
I'll have colors somewhere separate and effects somewhere else, and I'll just kind of add those on. And a lot of times you don't know what the band is going to play. You may get lucky and it's a band covering music you like, or some of the stuff that we do on the larger stages where you're playing um, for kind of older bands that are still out and touring.
Right.
Like one of my favorite shows that I did was who Don Felder is, Eagles.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, I got to do a show for him, and it was kind of funny. It was essentially Don Felder on stage with a band. So it was all about him, but I got really lucky there because I knew all of the Eagles songs. So that was a great, super fun show for me to do. It's because I knew a lot of the music that was coming. But a lot of the times when you're busking, you're making it up as you go, as opposed to like a lot of times if you go and see a concert, you're going to get stuff um, where they've sat down beforehand or as they go and just recorded cue lists and they're just playing them back to the song, whether it's with a time code or the guy's manually pressing the button.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of the difference between busking and everything else. Busking is just live and go.
Right. So yeah. Sorry, I got thrown through a loop. My stream hiccuped a little bit right now, but that's great. That's a great history of busking and everything that is involved with a live lighting rig for music. Now it correct me if I'm wrong, but it does changes. It does change from act to act, right? I know there's a lot of acts out there that will work off a SMPTE and a time code or a. When I say this, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, SMPTE is how do I put this in layman's terms? SMPTE is
It's
an
essentially
audio
it's a
file.
stream of numbers
Yeah, it's a stream of
going into your
numbers,
console.
right? And you'll see it on some TV, like whenever they show the background or the backstage area, when you see the strip of numbers that's going absolutely crazy and counting in a sequential number and a sequential order. That's how we line up our shows and get things in sync with each other, like with lighting and even with fireworks. Pyro works off of SMPTE, and that's how they get things, and lasers. Anthony knows about lasers. We'll talk about that in a bit. And getting everything in a succinct order because of SMPTE. Because for humans and for us to translate that to a button push on a go doesn't always translate that well, because there could be a delay between the audio console and the video console and the lighting console, which could have video running
Yeah,
through it.
the biggest thing with SMPTE is you're attempting to remove as much potential operator error, or just not even error, just variance in it as possible.
Right.
When you set up a SMPTE stream, everything is going to go when that clock reaches 5 seconds. Whereas if you have four operators all pressing the go button at 5 seconds, those four operators, even if they all think they press it at the same time, there's small variations, and it can be noticeable depending on what you're working on.
Right. And SMPTE deals with also with frames. So if those
Correct. Yes.
frames
So
seconds,
you're down to fractions of a second.
yeah,
A lot of SMPTE will use 29 frames a second. So 29 to 29.9, or whatever,
yeah,
depending on the flavor that
29.7
you're using.
non-dropped. Yeah.
So you're dividing a second into 30ths, and think about how precise that is.
It's
I've
it's
got
crazy.
pretty used to working with SMPTE, and I know myself I could probably detect 3, 4, 5 frames,
Sure.
um, but 1 or 2 frames is such a small amount of time, you just don't even notice it.
Right. Yeah, and I've worked with some guys as we're programming shows, some guys and gals that will program a show, and I'll set it off just barely, just to kind of accommodate for delay, for audio's sake, and I'm not going to name the show just because I don't want to get into that and proprietary crap. And the person that was running the programming was like, "It's off," and I'm like, "I
Yeah,
read
and
the
that's you get a feeling that it's off. Sometimes
yeah,
you can't even say what it is, but you just know, like, everything is firing just a hair behind or a hair ahead. It's not right.
yeah." It's insane when you get those folks that get that intuition and have that kind of timing with all of it. It just blows my mind. I have never seen so many people just so good with bam, it's not in time. Okay, that's good. Yep. I was like, it literally was half a frame. It was a frame, one frame off.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we got it. Oh man. All right, so now stepping back, let's where did you grow up? Where was we're going from tech, and we're gonna throw way back. So
You
let's
go
find out what
way
dates for
back,
you.
way back machine.
Way back.
I'm originally from Orange County. I would say that I kind of started doing theater in middle school, and I started on the audio side. You
Wait,
know,
what?
running. Yeah, I know it's weird. I just can't stand doing audio anymore. But so yeah, I started doing audio, and kind of kept with it through high school. Got involved in my church, doing media stuff again back in middle school, and yeah, audio mixing bands and stuff. And then I got into high school. I kind of went had a interesting theater situation in high school. I was fortunate enough to go to a private high school called Orange Lutheran, and at the time, their technical side of the theater program was all being run mostly by paid people. And as a student that knew something, I was able to get in on that. So from my freshman year of high school, I was working with, professionals, and I started gravitating towards lighting. And I realized, oh, I like this a lot more than I like audio. And just through that relationship, by my junior senior year, the guys that were there, they also owned their own company, and I started working for them on the outside. So I started getting paid to do stuff uh, legitimately when I turned 18, but I'd been getting slid money for a year or two before that. So I've been doing, officially been paid doing this for 11, 12 years, longer unpaid before that, which is sometimes kind of funny when I step into places and, people look at me like, oh, you're 30. And I kind of look a little bit younger than I am sometimes. Um, and get local crews that try and pull shit over on me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, no, I've been in this industry longer than you have, and I know how to make your day really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, especially
Um,
when the audio guy keeps asking for his power.
yeah.
If you're asking for power, I need lights, I need power. Well, sorry, you shouldn't have been a jerk.
Um,
Continue.
yeah. So, again, through high school, kind of kept working in theater. Again, started doing outside events with companies. Got access to, learning moving lights and moving light programming. Um, so I'm gonna be a little bit blasphemous here with most lighting guys, when I hardly touch Grand MA anymore, which most lighting guys will cringe at. I still know how to use Grand MA fairly well, uh, but I'm still a pretty big hog, and now Ava Lights guy, which is really weird because I never thought I'd go there.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm familiar with Hog. I've used the Hog 500 and I hated it. I've used Jan's Vista, which is literally the definition of splash and trash console. I've messed with the Grand MA very little bit. But what's Ava Lights? Is that another company or?
yeah, Ava Lights is actually a pretty old school company as far as the lighting world. They've really been in the flash and trash musical side of it. They're actually out of Great Britain, and they're kind of the ones that were building the just huge lighting consoles that they're huge. Look like it. Sometimes people look, I say what it looks like when a big analog lighting desk,
Oh
or
yeah,
sorry, audio desk.
audio desk. Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah,
the
that's what a D3 is. But they've moved into the modern era with a lot of their stuff, and they build some really nice lighting consoles now.
interesting.
And they're one of our partners with my current company.
Now,
Um,
do they allow
so
integration
I
for video content, like video playback?
They do. Their they have their Titan AI media servers, which are really cool. They're with some of the sync stuff that they're doing between their consoles and media server. some of the integration stuff that they're doing with what they're calling synergy.
Interesting.
And I can talk your head off because we're so close with them. I've had the opportunity to actually represent them at Live Design International (LDI), which is kind of one of the big trade shows. So I've had the opportunity to help out and show demo consoles in their booths and stuff.
And everybody's like,
So
"What's
I
this
can go on and
Jordan
on
doing
about.
showing us about this console that's older than his grandparents?"
Yeah, see, I always laugh with people. I'm like, I can't use the older Avo console, but anything that runs Titan, which is their current operating system, is great. Um, but kind of, sorry, we kind of got off track. Just going back into my history. So after high school, I ended up deciding I think I want to make this a career. So I ended up starting to attend Cal State Fullerton and get my degree in theater design and production. And
Cal State Fullerton
while I'm doing
has
that,
a production program.
yeah, it's theater design and production. Um,
Oh, interesting.
so it's a bachelor in theater arts, with dash design and production, and then you can even specialize within that. So like I concentrated while I was in school on lighting and scenic design
Sure.
because I found out that I really didn't like audio design. I don't mind mixing, but as far as audio design where you're doing sound effects and stuff, that was just not a place I wanted to go.
Yeah, it's not always an immediate payoff. I'm not a very
Um,
avid audio designer. I don't really like doing it either. Just
well,
because
right,
of
and that's
yeah. Go ahead.
if you go and study it in college, because a lot of college programs are geared towards the theater world. That's where you're going to go, because unless you're doing musicals, there's not a lot of audio mixing that necessarily happens. It's a lot of unreinforced voices,
Right.
or at least even in my experience, even if you go to some of the larger houses, there's no audio reinforcement on the actors unless it's a musical.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And to throw it back at Disney, I had just gotten literally maybe 2 or 3 months before we went on furlough. I had just gotten trained on Frozen, so I was running front of house at Frozen, which is a ton of mics and running a console that I've never run before. Again, I don't know how much proprietary is
Did
and
they
oh yeah,
upgrade the consoles? It's
oh
still.
yeah, they're using. I don't think I'll get in trouble for saying this. You know what? I'm not gonna say it because I want to go back to work.
I will
um,
find out from you later because I want to know.
yeah, yeah, we
Because I
did.
know
We
they were
upgraded
using
it.
some.
It's a console that has the ability to do I think 1024 inputs and 1024 outputs. And to be honest, it can do infinite because I think it depends on how many IOs you add into the system. And we're getting a lot more advanced in verbiage. So if you don't know what we're talking about, for those of you that are not my friends on Facebook or on YouTube, write a comment and I will tell you what we're talking about, and I'll get you there. Give you a little thesaurus of what we're talking about. But yeah, they added a bunch. But yeah, the audio design portion of that especially down in theater, it's 99% done ahead of time, and the board op doesn't
Right.
deal with that.
So I just, that wasn't something that I liked. So, that was just again in college, moving further and further towards lighting and scenic design. I actually really do enjoy the model making aspects of scenic design. But again, scenic design, a lot of that stuff comes into, working in the theater world, which I enjoy, and I still would like to do theatrical productions sometimes. But there's just, yeah, I hate to say it, there's no money in theater. It doesn't pay
Yeah,
the bills.
well, I would
It
say yes
can
and no. You
for a
just have to
select
know a lot
for a
of
select
people.
few.
Yeah, yeah, that's the great. Yeah, because it's the immediate payoff on it is it's especially in LA. There's no money for it.
Right.
There's not a ton of theater out here. It's a lot of Red Cat is putting on some theaters. Pantages comes along, but those guys are touring.
Right. They're touring usually under IATSE contract.
Yeah, sometimes not. Sometimes they are. Usually they are because
It's going to depend on the show.
yeah, it depends on the show and I think the house too. I think it's a logistical nightmare to deal with that, but you do IATSE and then you do which is the union, and you get a travel card, and then usually that foregoes all those issues. But um, yeah, that I mean, you've really got to be in there and entrenched and know a lot of people and do the right work. And I never wanted to deal with all that. It just seemed
Yeah, it becomes a process.
yeah
And there are, if you want to be in this industry and you want to do it professionally and make money, there are other places you can go.
yeah
And even while I was in school, I found that out. Kind of pretty much my freshman year, like Christmas of my freshman year, um, I ended up interviewing for a position at Pirates Dinner Adventure Theater in Buena Park.
ooh
Um, yeah, it was it was a show.
yeah
The more you drink, the better the show becomes.
yeah
But you know what? It was great. I was going to college for what I was working on at the same time. I was able to, pay my bills and everything, and just work through college. And I did that for a little under a year, and then there was a management shuffle. And as part of the management shuffle, I shuffled down the street and started working for Knott's Berry Farm through a contact that you might know. Do you know Eliseo?
yeah yeah I do.
Um, Eliseo and I met working for Pirates.
Oh, I didn't know he did
Um,
that.
and yeah, he did. And he worked at Knott's at the time. And as part of the management shuffle, I didn't like the new technical manager and the direction that it was going. So I kind of shuffled over to Knott's for a summer and worked for Knott's for a little under a year until I started working for Disney. So I started working for Disney the summer between my sophomore and junior years of college. And at World of Color, or sorry, at Disney, I went straight to World of Color, and that was my home for about the 5 years that I was at Disney.
Yeah, and then
And that's where
while you were at World of Color, you eventually came into the role of you were head of lasers, right?
correct. Yeah, I was head of lasers. So yeah, it was kind of funny. Literally, one of my first things that I did at Disney was I picked up a random shift doing lasers for what was the Tron show at the time,
Oh,
where they were programming it and they just needed a utility. Um, and when you first start working at Disney, they kind of put you on a show, kind of put you on, kind of give you a couple days to do training, but you're definitely not working full time right away. But what will happen is they'll have shifts open up, and I just kind of started doing this laser, kind of got picked up a shift a day or two doing this laser thing for what was it, Electronica. Um, I never really thought about it more than that because I went back to World of Color and learned all you could possibly learn about fountains and more than you would ever want to know about fountains either. Um,
hmm.
and just you know kept working through World of Color, and eventually, yeah, the person who was in charge of lasers at World of Color, he kind of moved on to bigger and better things, and I kind of moved into his position. So I was getting to program lasers, um, and learn some really cool stuff. And just, yeah, along the way, I did a lot of lighting projects and fountain projects for World of Color. You probably weren't there yet when we had Radiator Summer at World of Color. and we were just
Oh.
blowing up the projector radiators.
Oh, I think
So I
that was
spent a lot of time
yeah. That was
climbing
before.
behind projectors.
Yeah. Yeah, that was before. I think it was
Um,
the summer before I got there with
Probably, yeah,
doing
because
that.
I'm trying to remember when you came in, but
2014.
yeah, so
I
I
came in
would
the
have been
summer of
there
2014.
3 years.
What's
Yeah,
that?
so I guess we probably only worked together for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 years, and then you decided to bounce. Is almost the same amount of time as my other friend that I mentioned to you before this
Well,
call.
I did exactly 5 years looking at it, and I was kind of getting to the point where I was realizing that yes, Disney is a good place to work, but it's not necessarily a place where you're going to grow and expand your career unless you want to spend the rest of your career there. And I didn't think that's what I wanted. So like I said, I moved on to working for a production company.
Mm. Well, that's great. So now that you've had this career and you've moved on from Knott's and Pirate Dinner Theater and from Disney, now that you're at this place, and now that you can honestly say this, what is one of the dumbest mistakes you've ever made in your entire career that won't incriminate you in
um,
court? We don't want to get
that
you in
won't
trouble.
incriminate me in court.
Yeah.
There's a couple good ones. One of the ones was at Disney where I managed to crash World of Color mid show.
Oh.
Um, I don't remember if you were there for that. I was coming in uh, just I not scheduled there. I was doing a project shift with scheduling that I didn't agree with, that wasn't conducive to doing the project.
Oh.
So I came in while the show was still running, and I was like, I've got a list of things that I need to get done tonight, and I have very little time to do them. So what can I do that's not disruptive to the show? Um, Apparently, pulling up floor tiles in the control room or in the server room for World of Color, it can be disruptive to the show.
What? Wow.
So
Without getting
in
too
in
descriptive,
the
because we don't want to get into proprietary kind of things
yeah, so
here.
there's a server room associated with World of Color, and it's got two racks of servers on either side, and it's just like a raised server room with racks of equipment. And I started going through pulling up floor tiles because I was gonna run some cable underneath them. I got about 2 floor tiles in, and the show went down.
Wow.
And
So something
nobody
you
can
would think
figure
would
out
be
what I did. Yeah, was um,
wow.
you know nobody could figure out how I did it, but it was like it just happened.
Was yeah, it's like
So that was one of those moments of like, that shouldn't have happened. I can't even be angry at you for doing that, but yeah, you probably succeeded at bringing down World of Color.
yeah, and it was only for the one. Were you able
It
to
was
go
halfway
back?
through a show. It was fine.
Oh yeah.
They were able to restart and continue. It
Oh,
was just
that's
kind
good.
of one of those
Yeah.
moments of really.
Yeah. Cuz it's one of those
So
that's one of those things that you would think like this is the most innocent thing I can do. I just need to trace some cables so when the show is done, I can play some new
I
cables
wasn't
since
even tracing cables. I was removing covers
yeah,
from a floor.
it's the thing that shouldn't be connected to anything that would be remotely. It's the
Yeah,
same
not even
as like
touching closed racks or anything, just
right.
picking up tiles and moving backwards. And I got to about the second or third tile,
It's
and
almost to the equivalent
that was
of
it.
sliding open your closet and you lose power to your entire house. Like you're like,
Yeah,
how does this work? This shouldn't be a thing. That's bizarre, dude. I have never I don't think I've ever heard that story. And there's a ton of Disney stories, but I can't say all of them because a lot of them are
there's
proprietary kind of things and I don't want to incriminate anybody and getting ready into
Things like
lows.
jacuzzis.
Yeah. um, so let's see what else. Oh, so now moving on. If you could say, if you could work one gig out of everything, what would what would be out of all the gigs you've worked? What was your most favorite gig you've ever worked? Disney, Knott's, Pirates, in your current company, or yeah,
Um, that's hard. I One of the favorite things that we do at my current company every year is called Augmented World Expo, and I more or less get to design the general session for that. There is a designer for the event, but he will kind of advise because he has a lot of things going on. Um, and it's I get total creative control over a 2,000 seat room with some really interesting content because it's all about augmented and virtual reality. So that's one of my fun events that I get to do normally every year. It would be happening at about this time, but for obvious reasons, it's not.
wow, that's well, it's still cool though that you get. I mean, so you get creative control pretty much over everything, right? With the
Yeah, I
exception,
basically, get some, these are the colors we need to use this day. Have fun. And, I'll just kind of get yes or no, he'll kind of come through and I'll, do my looks or whatever for the different sessions. And the designer will be like, yes, 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 let's change this a little bit. Okay, great.
right? Oh, that's always the
For
best though.
a several day conference.
You get that creative control as opposed to we need you to set up a wash.
Right, which I mean, and there is still I still do a fair amount of that where
Yeah,
I'm coming into light for IMAG. I One of the things that we were doing a lot was we were doing the lighting for the Fox Sports One boxing events,
yeah,
um, and that was actually surprisingly fun. But it was a lot of okay, set up a wash because this thing has to look good on camera.
sure. And for just to step back a little bit, for those of you that don't know, IMAG stands for image magnification, meaning cameras. And lighting for cameras, as I've talked with Bree in the past, is it can be difficult, and you have to really communicate with your video folks really well. Usually, they have a lot more control, um, and it's
the
from what
the
I've worked
biggest
with.
thing is
Go ahead.
I was gonna say is with cameras is cameras lack the ability to automatically adjust like your eyeballs. So things that look fine to the eyeball, or differences that will look fine to the eyeball, cause a lot of problems in camera.
Right.
So you have to be very cognizant about keeping things level and even, and keeping what's called the color temperature of the light, which is kind of like essentially the kind of white that you're using,
Yeah. And
has to be
you'll
the
people
same and consistent.
yeah, everybody will know color temperature because every time you go to Home Depot, you'll actually see in their light bulb section, you'll see the different like, oh, this one's daylight. This one's that's usually like that's like CTB. And then there's
Correct.
dusk, which is like CTO, which stands for color temperature orange, and color temperature blue is CTB, and it's there's a what is the unit of measurement? It's a what is the
The Kelvin scale.
yeah, Kelvin
So
scale. Thank you.
yeah,
Not a
so
lighting guy.
things that you'll see a lot, even in like Home Depot, is like daylight, which is depending on who you're talking to, 6,800 Kelvin, all the way down to incandescent, which you'll see at 2,700 Kelvin.
Right.
Um, So, and it's a range, and you kind of have to decide with your camera team ahead of time what you're going to use. A lot of time for television broadcast, we like 4,000 Kelvin, 4,200 Kelvin. That's just the sweet spot that a lot of cameras like, and that incidentally usually corresponds to office fluorescence.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and because we took so long, my camera right now, which I set the color temperature to be at 55 Kelvin, 5500 Kelvin, not 55 Kelvin. That'd be weird. Um, it's changing right now because I don't have any studio lighting on me, and it's getting darker outside. So
Yeah,
that's
we
what's going
started
on.
this a little bit ago, and where lighting wasn't a concern, and
Yeah.
now it's starting to get a little dark.
Yeah.
That's why I think my cameras you're starting to lose color.
Yeah. Yours is losing a little color, and mine's getting darker, and I'm adjusting on the fly as we do this live stream, which is kind of cool that I can do that. But at the same time, it's something we shouldn't worry about. It's not that important right now. But that being said, yeah, and I will agree with you on that. The human eyeball is not like you said about the cameras.
It's
Granted, some cameras do have an auto iris, auto adjust, auto focus. There's all these auto options on there, but it's just not to the detail of the human eyeball. It will never
right.
ever reach that.
It's not the same. You have a range. A person running cameras or backstage can be shading the video.
Right.
Um, but it's one of those, again, as consistent as you can be on the lighting for something like that is helpful to them.
Right. Yeah. It's always that teamwork, that camaraderie between those two. Because I think those two talk more the most on comms on any type of show that require video
Especially
editing.
when I'm doing a lot of corporate events, I will be talking to the video director quite a bit. Um,
Yeah.
Whether they, beforehand, where they white balance a camera or we play a look and for whatever reason something shifts, it doesn't read the same anymore. Just trying to bring it back so that record or web stream or whatever looks consistent and correct, um, regardless of what's going on.
Right. Yeah, and it's always unnerving when when you're running shading and then your lighting guy accidentally bumps one channel up because he didn't save and he didn't save it as a preset or anything like that. He just accidentally bumps it, like especially if you get a house guy that really doesn't know what he's doing, and then all of a sudden you have this super hot spot. One bald dude just looks like his head's on fire, and you're like, oh. But it's important because they have to set it up for records because a lot of these corporate events they want everything recorded.
Yeah, that's a lot of our corporate events. Records are big. I have done events for Fortune 500 companies, and yeah, this is a huge event, and it is absolutely there are 8,000 people in the audience, and this is going to be available to the world following the event. So it has to be right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now that we've gone through your history, we've gone through our history, we've gone through what you're doing now, what you've done in the past. We've gone through some technical jargon that some people may know about, and a lot of our friends that will probably watch this will know about, and they'll probably laugh at me for knowing half of it or not knowing it correctly. But this has come to the part of the interview where I call the rapid fire, and I've changed them up just ever so slightly, just to make them a little more interesting. So I'm not giving the same rapid fire questions all the time to everyone, but I will keep some of them in there because they're important to me as a human, and I want to know them. So let's go ahead and start. Are you a cat or a dog person?
Dog.
Oh, you're so good. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve: people who don't listen to what I'm telling them.
Mm. And that's got to be really
I tell you,
frustrating if they kind of assume because you look young that they think you're young and
yeah.
they
So
don't listen to
again,
your
that's like you
experience.
said something earlier. It's something that I have to deal with. I was like, I'm telling you, I want something done a certain way, because I need it done a certain way. You may not know why I'm asking for that, because you're just setting up this concert or this rig today. But I've been setting this rig up every day for the last 3 weeks, and I need that light to go there and you'll see why I need that light to go there on that truss in about 5 minutes.
Oh, those
Even
are
though
the
it seems
best.
like it's a really, really dumb place,
Yeah.
that's what I need. No, I don't want you to change it or tell me how to do it better.
Yeah, but what? I have to run an extra 5 foot extension cord to it. Why? Why don't I just put it over? Just do it. Yeah, I totally. Oh man, that's a good one. If you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
My girlfriend and I were talking about this the other night. I really want to go to London. Um, I am a bit of a history buff, and I have never been to Great Britain or England, even though I've been in Europe. And I just want to go to London. There's some cool stuff there. I enjoy naval history, so I want to go see go see the Naval History Museum and some of the ships that are there. Plus, I would love to go and visit the Lights mothership. And they said if I'm ever there, they will be more than happy to give me a tour.
Oh, that's great. Wow. Um, yeah, I've been. Me and my wife have been to London, and it's a magical place. It's very cloudy all the time. That country is so depressing sometimes for its temperature or for its weather. But other than that, you're like, well, you have thousands of years of history as opposed to our measly 200. So,
Well, and yeah, I've gotten the chance to talk with the developers and stuff from Able Lights, over some pretty nice dinners and stuff. And we've just kind of one of the times is the topic of, just what it's like to be living in the same city where there are buildings that are 500 plus years old.
right.
Um, there are buildings there that still stand in London that are still in use that were built before European history in America even began.
That's insane.
So
I mean, you
it's just kind of interesting to go. I would love to go and see the history.
the craziest thing to me is that after World War II, though, that country began rebuilding immediately, and
Yeah,
there's so many buildings there that actually survived, but a lot of it was really destroyed, and they just did a great job of restoring it. Oh no, Mom!
right. And building around stuff and
Yeah, yeah, and it's just remarkable to me. Like, I mean, what was? I mean, I don't. I'm not going to try to guess or say things about history because I don't know a lot about that history, and I do enjoy looking at the Tower of London and Buckingham Palace. That was gorgeous to see all that stuff. I mean, Big Ben. Oh my gosh, Big Ben. Big Ben is so cool. Um, Granted, it is just a large clock.
it's a
But
large
seeing,
clock, but it's still there's this amazing history there
oh
that
yeah,
that was built.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Now moving on. What's your favorite band?
Ooh, favorite band. I'm gonna have to. I'll give you two answers to this. Um, and it's kind of weird. Favorite band that I'd absolutely love to see and love to listen to all the time is I love Imagine Dragons,
Nice.
and the favorite band that I have ever gotten to do lights for and see multiple times is Creedence Clearwater Revival, Creedence Clearwater Revisited.
CCR.
They're one of my favorite. Yeah, older, old rock, love it.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Were they are they with Fogarty or without Fogarty?
Now that Fogerty has left, they became revisited.
Yeah.
Creedence Clearwater Revisited. They were revival with Fogerty, but he hasn't been with them for a while. Unfortunately, it sounded like this was going to be their last summer of touring.
Oh man.
Um, so I've
Ugh,
done lights for them once because their normal guy wasn't available for whatever reason.
sure.
But I've also seen their show like four other times because they're quite common on the touring circuit that we support.
Sure.
And I just always enjoy watching their music and seeing them live.
And if there's a gig or a show, what is there's a gig or a show you've always wanted to work? I wrote these questions. How am I having problems reading them?
Um, I think there's going to be a lot of lighting technicians that would say this, but I would love to work. I would love to program or run a console for an Olympics opening ceremony because they tend
Derek said the
to
same
be.
thing, dude. Derek Voss
And,
said,
and Derek and I still talk occasionally. Derek and I were good friends because Derek started at Disney at the same time that I did.
right.
Um, and yeah, it's not surprised that he said that, but it just, as far as an Olympics, is just like one of those opening or closing ceremonies, is just going to be one of the largest shows that you're ever going to have the chance to work on,
Right.
um, and to do something artistic. Because yeah, you can do a Super Bowl halftime show, but you're super constrained as far as what you can put up,
Oh, and your time.
and just the time limits
Yeah.
and stuff. Whereas the an opening ceremony is they just spend so much time to be artistic about it, and just have a lot of gear about it. So again, something that would be super awesome to do in a heartbeat.
Granted, probably all audio is playback. It's all probably tracked, so
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be kind of boring
it would
for
be
audio,
stupid.
but going back into the our time code discussion that we were having earlier, I'm sure that's a time coded show
Oh yeah,
as
has to
well.
be.
So,
Has to be.
um, but again, there is something magical about sitting behind a console and running a time code show. It is kind of a cool thing that I'm sitting here watching as my console is doing all of its stuff, um, and something's cool is happening. So that when I was running World of Color, I got to experience that quite a bit, and I still get to do it occasionally where we'll run time coded bits of corporate shows where they've got sizzle videos or whatever.
Right. Um, After this is all done, after we're done with this pandemic, what are you looking forward to most after we get done with this?
Um, Man, I'm looking forward to just getting back to doing shows. As shitty as the 14-hour days can be sometimes. Man, you realize I do this because I love it.
Yeah.
Um, could definitely do other things to make money. Um, because you got to have a passion for this industry to do it because it is a lot of work. But I'm gonna be happy to go back to doing shows. Loading in a lighting rig, focusing, running a sound check, and then running a show, tearing it all down, and going home, or getting on the bus and going to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something I'm looking forward to. I haven't been able to rig. I haven't been able to climb for rope access. I haven't been able to do anything. And it's except for stream. And this is the most technology I've had to deal with, and it has its own set of challenges. And that's something that we constantly, as an industry, have to adjust for. We get a new piece of technology, we get something new thrown at us, and as a community of technicians and some of us potentially even scientists and engineers that also love theater and do all this stuff, um, that's where our environment is to thrive in. Is a lot of us can go, I'm going to go load that truck for UPS because I know how to load a truck. It doesn't have casters on it. It doesn't have gear and stuff that I would use normally.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I've had friends help me move, and they're like, oh, how long is it gonna take to load the truck? Oh, it'd take less than an hour. Be
Yeah,
super fast.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and
night
I,
and day.
conned one of my company's drivers, is like, made sure that I could borrow a truck. It's like, hey man, if I give you $20, you drive one of our 24-foot trucks and help me move this weekend. Oh yeah, sure. And we load my entire apartment into the truck in like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
And my friends are like, what? And it's like, well, yeah, Grant's one of my drivers. I do this with him all the time. It's just
yeah,
the only difference is it's not on wheels.
yeah. And so, as I was saying, we figure it out. I mean, that should be the biggest T-shirt ever. It says, "Oh, stage technicians, stage hands. We just figure it out. Don't worry about it. We figure it out. We'll figure it out. Anything we try to come up, and it comes any type of adversity that comes up, it's how we learn and it's how we grow and it's how we keep getting more and more gigs is because we figured it out. And
Right.
unfortunately,
Every everything that you do, you can plan it. You can plan it to the nth degree. You can have a rock solid plan. You can think you're prepared for everything, and something will change.
Yeah.
uh, Inevitably something will be different. And that's not to say that you shouldn't prepare for anything, because that preparation is what a lot of times is what makes it so it's like, okay, well, I guess we're doing that now.
Yeah.
Those lights are now going over there,
Yeah.
or, whatever. And it's just dealing with stuff as they happen, or running a show and things go get the order gets changed all of a sudden, or a piece of gear that you were counting on working is no longer working for who knows whatever reason, and just finding a way to adapt.
Yep. That's a big point. Adapt. And in the current climate we're in, that's what we're having to do. And as I bring this to a close, Anthony, I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show. After all of my technical issues that I had to deal with, and being patient and understanding and basically adapting to the current climate, thank you so much for being on. You're episode number 3. Our video quality is turning super potato, which means not good.
Yeah,
And
there's no light. Our cameras don't like this.
our cameras cannot deal with this right now. So I'm gonna try to quickly sign us off. Thank you again, Anthony, and thank you so much for being on the stream today. And hopefully I'll work with you real soon, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you're doing this and taking time to get this out.
Yeah, no worries, man. Have a good one.